Hold up. Back up. We talking backup running backs? I had to take my shirt off because this is a hot subject. Just how hot is it? We'll find out next on Triple Play Fantasy. Yeah, so this topic is so hot. I hit the wrong intro. I'm so my mind's all over the place because this is such a subject that people talk about. They throw these guys around here, but this could be league winning stuff, and I'm here to help you figure out these top handcuffs here and ultimately figure out what are they going to do for your team. So we're talking about some of the best running back handcuffs in football. One of them you might not know about. So that was a little question mark that we got right there for you. So without further ado, let's dive in. Let's talk about the ones that just missed the cut. And it's a group of 3 running backs. 2 of them you probably are very familiar with here, and one of them that's kind of a new name that's floating around. Alexander Madison, of course, is the handcuff for Dalvin Cook with the Vikings. Unfortunately, Dalvin Cook has not produced very well when he's actually gotten the opportunity with the Vikings. He's one of, I think, the top names thrown around in a handcuff role, but doesn't produce necessarily like a handcuff. So he's not on this list. Darrell Williams is going to get some work with Clyde Edwards-Helaire there in Kansas City. But again, similar to Alexander Madison, is not one of those league-winning backup running backs that you have to roster. Obviously, if you have CAH, you want to make sure you grab him, but he's not one of those top-end handcuffs that's a league winner. Tyson Williams is now leapfrog Justice Hill in the Ravens backfield there, and now he's expected to kind of complement Gus Edwards. But at this point right now, he's not somebody that, again, I think you can expect to give you that league-winning upside, even if Gus Edwards goes down. So now that we've eliminated some honorable mentions here, some guys that are just outside the top 5, we're going to talk about the top 5 running back handcuffs that you need to roster that could potentially be league winners if the starting running back in that backfield goes down. And we're going to start off first with Mr. JAMAAL Williams. So what's really interesting about JAMAAL Williams is everybody's very familiar with him with his time in Green Bay, of course. You know, he was kind of put a thorn in people's sides that had Aaron Jones there. But JAMAAL Williams, if you keep in mind here, he was added to the roster, giving offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn another weapon. Anthony Lynn loves his running backs. The receiving abilities and injury concerns that come with Swift make him a very valuable handcuff just in that right. But in fantasy football this season, Williams' flash potential you've seen from the 4 years in Green Bay as he's racked up 1,985 rushing yards, 961 receiving yards across 60 games. He also posted a catch percentage of 86.7% or higher each of the last 2 years and has yet to fumble the game in any game in his career. The expectation is that the first-year line is going to play a role on the offense right away. Obviously, with Swift already dealing with a groin injury, this is only going to make Williams have more snaps early on in the season. The standalone value for Williams right now with Swift is going to be somewhat of a timeshare, but if you were to say Swift were to go down and miss multiple weeks and Williams gets that full job to himself, it's going to be fantastic. The upside that comes with Williams is much higher, as we said, for most backup running backs, handcuff running backs, as he's racked up over 700 yards from scrimmage in each of the last 2 seasons and can be a great starter for you. Great in the receiving game. JAMAAL Williams, the number 5 backup running back handcuff that you should roster on your teams. Number 4, we're talking about CHUBA Hubbard. So Mr. CHUBA Hubbard, people remember him in college, great back in college. He got drafted by the Carolina Panthers. And why is that so attractive in a team with Christian McCaffrey right now? Because, again, you remember the Panthers drafted him in the 4th round. You don't think he's going to be someone that's going to sift the field too much with McCaffrey there. But going back to when McCaffrey missed time last year, you had Mike Davis filling in the role and getting 1,015 total yards and 8 touchdowns. So that's exciting. The fact that someone can go in there and get 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns like Mike Davis, who I'm not a believer in his talent. I think CHUBA Hubbard has leaps and leaps more talent than him, is something that's encouraging. Now, one area of weakness for the Panthers is that offensive line. It's still a work in progress with a combination of inexperienced young players and ineffective veterans. 9 Panthers linemen played 100 or more snaps in 2020, and this scenario could probably repeat itself again in 2021. But if you remember Chuba Hubbard back in college, he played 7 games for Oklahoma State last season due to an ankle injury. He had 133 carries for 625 yards and 5 touchdowns. It's also worth noting that Chuba is the only one season removed from his miraculous 2019 season, which he rushed for 2,094 yards and 21 touchdowns, with the poor 2020 obviously hurting his draft stock. But if you know and you studied him on film, this former Oklahoma State running back has shown to be able to handle a significant workload, run with solid tempo, has the vision to recognize running lanes, and is an effortless downhill runner. The excellent change of pace, direction ability here. If Christian McCaffrey goes down, you can project him to be a league winner. He's going to be a lottery ticket, one of the best lottery tickets in the game for this Panthers team. If he gets the opportunity, obviously with Christian McCaffrey there right now, it's not going to be too much more than a compliment, but the definition of a lottery ticket if there's no Christian McCaffrey. Number 3 on this list is the guy that had the question mark next to his name on the preview here on the panel, and that is Tony Jones Jr., who many people are not familiar with. And let me tell you a little bit about Tony Jones Jr., who was a name heading into training camp that no one knew about, but he's already impressed the coaching staff with every single opportunity he's gotten. The undrafted free agent led the backfield during the preseason with 12 carries for 106 rushing yards and a touchdown, and he put together a reliable college career at Notre Dame where he had 1,754 yards from scrimmage to go along with 14 touchdowns in 37 games. Now, Jones Jr. right now is in a competition to lock up the number 2 role with Latavius Murray. I at some point thought he was going to get cut. Obviously, Murray's going to be there right now. And Murray hasn't done anything to necessarily lose the job. He has 7 years of experience, over 6,200 career yards. He also averaged 4.4 yards per carry last year and 9 touchdowns, but he's never been strong in the passing game. And that's key. Because if you look at running backs in Sean Payton's system over the years, he prefers them to catch the ball. If you look at the Pierre Thomases of the world, the Chris Ivorys of the world, Alvin Kamara, the most recent example, the most successful running backs in his system need to be able to catch the ball. And Jones has a lot better catching ability than Latavius Murray, has that ability to be a 3-down back. Heck, they could even see where maybe Kamara splits wide out and that Jones Jr. is on the field at the same time right now. And if you looked even from the beginning of the preseason, he showed out in that first game against Baltimore, 82 rushing yards on 7 carries, 18-yard touchdown run, a 28-yard run in that game. Also caught 5 passes for 38 yards on 5 targets. That dimension that he brings to this offense is going to be huge for Sean Payton and Jameis Winston, who is going to obviously want to be able to dump it down to a running back that can catch here. And even though Alvin Kamara is going to be the workhorse in this system once again, and he hasn't appeared in 16 regular season games since his rookie year in 2017. So this is going to be the definition of one of those guys that I think is going to get mixed in as a change of pace for Kamara, and it is going to be a lock it in top 20 back at the minimum if Kamara were to go down. I love Tony Jones Jr. I think he's got a lot of talent as a 3-down running back, and he's somebody that you should be grabbing at the end of your drafts, especially if you have Alvin Kamara on your team. Number 2 on this list, A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon, the Quad Father, one of the hottest names in fantasy football circles in the offseason. The excitement for the Green Bay Packers running back A.J. Dillon was through the roof. Remember when we thought Aaron Jones wasn't going back to Green Bay? We were talking about him as a high-end RB2, and that was a time to be alive, obviously, right? That feels like ages ago. But if you look at it, man, I mean, playing in 11 games last year, Dillon rushed 46 times for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns, only caught 2 targets for 21 yards, so not great in the passing game. But remember, week 16 against the Titans, when you finally got to see him play, he played 58% of the snaps in that game, rolled for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns on 22 carries, and added a 5-yard catch in that game. It was RB6 that week at 25.4 PPR points per game. That game obviously led to people really believing what A.J. Dillon could do. And you look, both JAMAAL Williams going to Detroit, Tyler Ervin's their free agent, are off the team, combined leaving 10.5 touches per game up for grabs. And that alone is obviously going to give him some type of little bit of a floor there. We don't expect to see him too much in the passing game right now, but has that right now kind of RB4 low-end flex appeal as it stands right now, but he's in a high-powered offense, should be a factor on the goal line. And fantasy production, let's take a look at kind of as a whole here. The Packers ran 62.8 plays per game last year. compared to 63.2 in 2019, and they rushed on 43.7% of their reps, up from 40.2% in 2019. So you know that Jones is going to be the lead back there. Jones playing 61% of the snaps, saw a 13% target share in 2019. And he also, in last year, he saw 60% of the snaps and 15% of the targets while missing 2 games. So again, I'm expecting right now AJ Dillon to see about 10 rushes-ish a game, 9 to 10 rushes a game. Maybe we'll get 1 or 2 targets. Nothing crazy. But again, if Aaron Jones goes down, you'll hear argument from many people that this is going to be a top 10, no doubt about it, running back. The definition of a league winner, AJ Dillon. He's 1A, 1B with the next guy I'm going to bring up. He's as much of a lottery ticket as far as backup running backs goes. Anybody, make sure you draft AJ Dillon, especially if you have Aaron Jones on your team. But if you want to stash somebody that you think could be huge for you down the stretch if something happens to Aaron Jones, that's AJ Dillon. Getting to our last guy at number 1, that is Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is viewed as arguably the best backup running back in the NFL right now. Last year played 26% of the offensive snaps, and has actually had 4 RB1 finishes on his resume right now, and has averaged 0.84 fantasy points per opportunity, which is rushing attempts plus targets. Is Pollard a league winner if Ezekiel Elliott goes down? I think so. Again, he's 1A, 1B right now with AJ Dillon as the best handcuff running back to own in all of fantasy football. You expect the second-year running back. He needs to get more involved, obviously. 32% of the offensive snaps last year, 9 opportunities per game. Ezekiel Elliott's a hog. He led the unit in snaps played, rushing attempts, and targets, of course. But when you saw he missed week 15 against the San Francisco 49ers last year, Pollard had that opportunity all to himself. 21 opportunities, 132 total yards, and 2 touchdowns, won people many weeks in the playoffs last year. And the 2018 fourth rounder was RB1 in PPR formats that week. So you've seen the potential there. The Cowboys have said they're going to get more creative ways to get him involved in the 2021 season. So again, he's going to probably be somebody that's like an RB4 low-end flex in a best-case scenario while Elliott's there. But if Ezekiel Elliott goes down, Tony Pollard is the person that you will probably see on many shows. I would just be shocked to see him lower than 7 or 8 in people's top 10 running backs as far as what they can produce if they get the RB1 type of volume. So those are the 5 running backs that I believe are going to be the best handcuffs to draft in your fantasy drafts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Should they be reordered? Let me know in the comments below because I love criticism. I invite it. Let me know what you think as far as which running backs we should roster and if there's anything I missed. So we appreciate you guys checking out Triple Play Fantasy in the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads or anytime we put out a video. We're putting out like 2 or 3 a day. So there's always great content coming on the Triple Play YouTube channel. And until the next video, guys, we will see you in the next one.